want to listen to what the prosecution is alleging are the new gag order violations. Here's a clip.
When are they going to look at all the lies that Cohen did in the last trial? He got caught lying in the last trial. So he got caught lying, pure lying.
That jury was picked so fast, 95% Democrats. The area is mostly all Democrat. You think of it as just a purely Democrat area.
Michael Cohen is a convicted liar, and he's got no credibility whatsoever. He was a lawyer, and you rely on your lawyers. But Michael Cohen was a convicted liar.
You thought of David Pecker's testimony so far? When was the last time you spoke to him?
No, he's been very nice. I mean, David's been very nice. He's a nice guy.
In some cases, he's answering questions, which is something that his lawyer has said. He was just answering the question. It wasn't him who was bringing them up out of thin air. Do those sound like gag order violations to you?
They do. And let's differentiate Donald Trump in the courtroom. I've said many, many times, innocent until proven guilty. He's done nothing wrong until proven otherwise. The Donald Trump outside the courtroom is dismembering and dismantling the criminal justice system single-handedly by blowing up, if you will, the integrity of that process. And that's what Judge Merchan is trying to do. He's trying to say, there's a process here. I have to protect the jurors. I have to protect the court staff. You've demonstrated before that you can't abide by this. You've done this in other courtrooms. You need to follow my very limited scope and very limited ruling, and Donald Trump is not doing so. The problem is, it's a win for Donald Trump. It's a $1,000 fine to get your message out to your masses, and if he gets in and goes in, cools his heels somewhere inside, that's going to be a win, too. So it's a really difficult bind the court finds itself. Really terrible.
So they initially had the gag order hearing, the first one last week. The judge ruled on that, Tristan, this week on Tuesday, and he issued the $9,000 fine, $1,000 for each of the violations. Those comments we just played were in between those two moments in time, right? The first hearing and his first ruling. And then when he made that ruling, he said that incarceratory punishment could come if Trump continues to violate the gag order. So does it seem like maybe that warning has worked? Do you see evidence of Trump now sort of holding his tongue?
No, not really. I mean, look, for him to then go, he was going last night into the judge being crooked. He can do that, okay? And he can, if he wants to rail on Alvin Bragg, the Manhattan DA, he can do that. But look, what we've seen is he's been getting the warning. It's like, this is, even before we had the whole hearing, there had been admonishment from Justice Merchan. He had already been giving Trump these warnings. They have not had any deterrent effect. He is continuing to push the envelope because it's a game of chicken. Effectively, he's basically daring everybody to do something about it, and nobody's doing anything about it. And I think it bears repeating, based on what Katie and Jeremy were just saying. Again, if anybody else did this, they would be facing lockup. They'd be throwing themselves a parade just to get away with some fines. Like, this is not something that people get away with. Any other defendant, it would have been a different story. He's continuing to push the envelope, and I think he will continue to keep violating these gag orders and to keep on trashing witnesses and the jurors until something's done about it, and nothing has been done about it yet.
Let's go back to Yasmin, because there's been more coming from the courtroom with Todd Blanche, Trump's attorney, making arguments for Trump, specifically talking about how Cohen has been behaving, right?
Basically saying that Michael Cohen doesn't need the protection that is in place as a potential witness here within this gag order. One other thing, Anna, before I get into that, I just quickly want to mention here, Conroy, one of the attorneys for the people, is actually not seeking jail time with these potential violations of this gag order, jumping off of the question that you just asked there, because essentially the argument they're making is it's going to disrupt proceedings, right? So right now they don't want the former president to go to jail if, in fact, Merchan finds that he violated these gag orders. So what they're talking about when it comes to Michael Cohen, let me read for you some of what Todd Blanche just said in court there. Let's talk about Michael Cohen. Two statements. Mr. Cohen has been inviting and almost daring the president to respond. Personal attacks on his character, mocking him for being on trial and his candidacy for the president of the United States. He goes on. Mr. Cohen has started going on TikTok nightly and literally making money. He actively encourages folks to give him money. His TikTok repeatedly criticizing the president. This is not a man who needs protection from the gag order. And this is something an argument that Todd Blanche has been making all morning, that Michael Cohen is kind of inviting, right, does not need protections from this gag order as other potential witnesses feasibly do because of the fact that he is so public about this fight on TikTok, on social media, on cable news as well. However, Judge Duane St asks one simple question, Anna, which I think is really interesting. He says, did he violate the gag order? That's all I want to know. And Blanche says, absolutely, positively not. But going back to what you said earlier, which is what are the violations of this gag order? It is talking about the jury and it is talking about potential witnesses, both of which he has done on these potential violations.
Okay, Yasmin, keep us posted. So Katie, what does the judge do about the Michael Cohen TikTok videos? And this idea that because
Cohen doesn't have a gag order.
Cohen's not on trial.
I was like, Cohen's not a gag order.
Does he need to be protected if he's out there, you know, continuing to talk and saying things that are inflammatory? I guess his lawyer, Trump's lawyer, is arguing that Cohen doesn't need protection.
Okay, but this is Blanche. I'll give him a little bit of credit. He is a little bit more prepared than the last time he had this hearing. This is him trying to turn the issue on its head. Michael Cohen is not the criminal defendant in this case. He is not the subject of the gag order. The gag order is in place to protect the integrity and the administration of justice. It's not solely to protect the safety of Michael Cohen. It's the idea that Donald Trump cannot make comments about witnesses and their participation in this case so as to not serve as a deterrent for others to be able to come forward and speak the truth about what's happening, so that they don't feel scared or cowed into submission in any way, so that the juries don't feel like they have to cough, call in sick and get off this jury because they're fearful of what's going to happen when Donald Trump says that 95% of this jury are Democrats that were rushed through this process, insinuating that it's just some rigged system. And so Blanche, and that's why Judge Merchan's comment makes him Judge Merchan, right? His question. Did your client violate the gag order? This is not an open opportunity for you, Todd Blanche, to wax about and bemoan the problems for your client. It's you're looking at a contempt hearing. Stay within the lane of what the issues are.
And your client's own behavior.
Yes, exactly. Why are you worrying about that?
Exactly. What do you think, Jeremy?
I agree within reason. I can appreciate, as a defense attorney now, taking that hat off before as a prosecutor. My client is being railed by some guy who has his own agenda to make some dollars to really come after my client. What is my client going to do? Not only that, he is running for president of the United States. He does have a forum to be able to share his politics and share his views. There's the integrity of the process, which is so critical to maintain, but I can appreciate why Blanche is now making that argument. And frankly, and proverbially, not literally, you know, Michael Cohen needs a slap on the behind and grow up. And if I'm the prosecutors, I'm grabbing him by his shoulders and shaking him again, proverbially, literally, as hard as I can, saying, stop running your mouth. You're going to ruin this case. You're going to ruin yourself. For a few dollars, your infamy is going to last forever. But you can't control him like you control Donald Trump as the court and as the defense attorney.
And so, Tristan, the judge has a tough decision to make. Does he just hit with some more fines, because that's really what the law allows here in the state, that or jail time, right? So when you hear Yasmin say the prosecution is not asking for jail time in this case because they don't want to disrupt the proceedings and kind of derail the trial, what do you think about that?
You want my honest answer?
Absolutely.
Okay, so look, I think in terms of the judge, the American system is an adversarial system. It's not meant for the Supreme Court aside. It's not meant for judges to just sort of be freelancing and making up law as they go along. They're supposed to make decisions based on what both sides say. If the defense is saying he did nothing wrong and the prosecution is saying, please don't put him in jail, the judge is not going to put him in jail. Now, in my view, the prosecution not seeking incarceration here is, I think, the wrong decision. And I think that we have to remember that this was a prosecution that really almost never got brought in the first place. It got the kibosh put on it back in 2022. It got revived in 2023 in a modified, limited form. And I think that there's a certain degree to which if people want to see justice happen, they need to have their voices heard.
But what if it derails the trial?
Somebody's going to have to look. I'm open to arguments here, but I would have to hear exactly how is that going to happen. This isn't happening.
I actually disagree. I think you need to stay the course. I think you don't make a sideshow. You have a job to do, and it's in that courtroom. And Donald Trump outside that courtroom is incredibly foolish, although politically it may be beneficial to him. Stay the course. Pursue your case. You have an indictment. You have fairly easy, simple charges. They're not that complicated. Follow the law. Get your evidence out. Do your job. I would stay the course. I would not move to putting him in jail. That creates an entirely different animal, and you don't want that as a prosecution. Not now.
As the judge is having to make this decision, Trump has been attacking Judge Merchan. Take a listen to what he said yesterday at this rally in Wisconsin.
There's no crime. Now, I have a crooked judge. He's a totally conflicted judge. And I come, it's unfortunately, it's a 95% or so Democrat area. Other than that, things are wonderful.
Again, Judge Merchan's not included in this gag order, Katie, but do comments like that have any impact on this case or the proceedings?
No. Trump has made it clear from day one what he thinks about the prosecution, all of his prosecutions, and what he thinks about the judges, except for Judge Aileen Cannon, I will footnote that. But I respectfully disagree. I don't see how this derails the proceedings. I don't know how this disrupts the proceedings. We've had cases as prosecutors where you've had disruptive defendants that have done something wrong. You put them in the pokey for a little while. There's a little cell in the back. I don't know how little it is. I've never been in it personally. But you put them in the cell. Well, it's not. I was going to say. I'm advising you to invoke your Fifth Amendment right now. No, but you put them in the pokey. And look, the Secret Service can stand outside of it. I mean, there has to be a consequence to your actions. And if the DA's office wasn't interested in it, why bring the motion for contempt in the first place? If you only were going to stay the course and only put on your case in chief, why bring the motion in the first place? Because you're seeking some type of punishment, the punitive part of our punitive system.
For the record. Well, to make
are you building it so that you eventually put him in jail? I mean, that's the question.
I think that foundation is being laid, but also keep in mind, I think what another possibility to kind of split the baby here is you could find him in contempt and you could go the incarceratory route, even if it's just for minutes.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be right now in the moment. You don't have to do it now. You can delay it towards the end of the trial or at the end of the trial.
So you could sentence him after the trial on this specific issue.
Theoretically, you just move it along down the line at some point. So it doesn't disrupt this proceeding and process. So it's not disturbing the flow. So it's not creating a sideshow right now. But yes, there needs to be some accountability.
And actually,
there needs to be accountability.
That solution about the kind of delayed punishment, but, saying this will be your punishment eventually is something I heard from a former New York judge who knows Judge Merchan suggesting exactly that. We'll see how this shakes out.